Okay, now we move on into how affect and cognitions are interrelated with each other. All right, now I want you to reflect about your life. Okay, think of a time in your life when you were in a very good mood, something good that happened in you that you feel very, very happy. All right, so now you think about that moment. Okay, in contrast, I want you also to remember a time when you were in a very bad mood. Okay, something negative that occurred in you and you were feeling down and blue. Okay, now I want you to reflect which, okay, when each of these emotion, which of this emotion, whether it's in a good mood or in a bad mood, that control your consciousness. Okay, in other words, did you remember your experience and the other people who shared them in contrasting ways? Okay, so there is a likelihood that the way we think have a complex interplay with our current moods or emotion. Okay, how we think about certain events, how we process or how we store and remember and use that kind of information can also affect our current moods and emotion. So our emotions and mood are strongly influenced in several aspects. Okay, and in turn, our way of thinking, our cognition can also exert strong effects on our emotions and mood. All right, and the continuous and complex interplay of of cognition affect our current moods or emotion as well as our cognition. Okay, cognition, let us look into one by one. Cognition affect through our interpretation of emotion-provoking events and through the activation of schemas containing a strong affective component. So basically, when you are in a very good mood, it helps you to think about more information of certain event. You may want to think about good events. You may want to store more information when you are in good mood. That's why if you want to engage in final examination or quizzes or focusing on something important, you need to have a positive emotion, because when you have positive emotion, when you have good mood, okay, a favorable mood, it affects the way you think, the way you process information, the way you store information. You must be in a very good mood when you want to study, for example. Otherwise, everything that you read will not process. Okay, and then it's very hard for you to use that kind of information. If you are in a bad mood, okay, it is very difficult for you to store the information when you study. Nothing will come in your mind, for example. So brain activity reflective of empathy in response to pain experienced by another person depends on how we categorize the other person. Okay, let us look into how mood, the emotion, the feeling can affect our memory. Let us look into one by one. Okay, how mood affect our memory? We call this situation as mood congruence effects. Okay, mood congruent effects is the fact that we are more likely to store or remember positive emotion when we are in a positive mood. So that is what we call mood congruent effect. And we are less likely to store information when we are in a bad mood. Okay, let me reframe that. Okay, we are more likely to store or remember positive information when we are in a positive mood, and we are likely to store or remember negative information when we are in a negative mood. Okay, so when you are in a negative mood, you might think about all the negative things about me, for example. But if you are in a positive mood, you may remember all positive things about me, because this is what we call mood congruence effect. We are more likely to store or remember positive information when you are in a positive mood, and you are more likely to store or remember negative information when you are in a negative mood. So we call it mood congruence effect, in which this is how mood can affect our memory. Okay, let us look into the other way around, how how memory affect our mood. We call mood dependent memory. Okay, mood dependent memory means our mood depend on our memory. Just now the mood congruent, okay, with the memory. Okay, mood dependent memory is the fact that we remember while we are in a given mood, that may be determined in part by what we learned when previously in that mood. So your mood determines what you notice and remember, and your current mood as a trigger for your memory, meaning that when you are in a positive mood, for example, that positive mood influence you to remember certain things about that event that will help you to memorize certain things. So that is mood dependent memory. The fact that what we remember, okay, what you remember in a positive mood and what you remember in a negative mood, that is mood dependent memory. So basically both of these is how the mood affect memory. Okay, this mood affect memory, mean our mood affect how we remember about things. Okay, the other way around is how our thinking, our memory, our cognition influence our affect. Okay, most research on the relationship between affect and cognition has focused on how feelings influence thought, but there are also some suggestions saying that the way of thinking also can influence our thought. So this is known as the two-factor theory of emotion, in which it stated that often we do not know our feeling or attitudes directly. Rather, these internal reactions are often somewhat ambiguous, and we infer their nature from the external world, from the kinds of situation in which we experience this reaction. So we call affective forecast. Okay, prediction about how we would feel about an event we have not experienced are often not accurate, because cognition and affect are based in different systems. So those in the forecasting role are sensitive to the numbers of people harmed, whereas those in an experience role are not differently responsive to the magnitude of the tragedy. So basically, our cognition also will affect our mood. Okay, why? Because we sometimes do not know how to feel, okay, until our mind tell us what to feel. Okay, so this is how cognition give effect to our emotion, and the other one is how affect, okay, how emotion and feelings can influence our social cognition. So in the first case just now, we have two types of terms that you need to understand: mood congruence effect and mood dependent memory. So there are things that you need to know about how to regulate your effect, okay, your affect, your feeling, your emotional states. Okay, and there are ways that you can harness your thought to influence a better emotional experience. We are asked to learn to regulate negative feelings and unavoidable parts of our life, okay, through coping mechanism. So we need to adjust, and Islam also has outlined there are many ways, okay, that we can use to adjust with our emotional experience like sadness, disappointment, depressed feeling, or despondent, and then frustration. So Islam has outlined many cognitive ways. We have to think about positive in terms of physical coping strategy like doing exercise, eating healthily, eating good food, spiritual strategies like prayer, fasting, performing sedekah, helping other people, and these are strategies that can help you to regulate the negative emotions. So these are how this affect can influence the way you think about yourself. All right, so there you go. Before we end our final part, there is neuroscientific studies that explain how the two separate systems of affect and cognition work together in human brain. Yeah, the research findings says that when they scan human brain, they say that our brain has two distinct systems of processing social information. The first one is logical thinking, which is our brain, and the second one is our affect or emotion. And these two systems, our brain and our emotion, work together and interact in many ways during our problem solving, making decision, and other forms of cognitive process. So basically, when we talk about social cognition, when we talk about how we want to understand our social world, we not only play around with our thoughts, but we also play around with our emotion. And this emotion can also influence the way we think about the social world. So basically, we have talked about heuristics, we have talked about schema and mental framework. We also talk about the potential sources of error when we engage in social cognition called heuristics or mental shortcuts. And we also talks about how cognition affect our affect and how our affect affect our way of thinking. So later, I will leave you with some exercises through Kahoot. We can recap all these terms, okay, in the Kahoot. So I hope you enjoy playing the Kahoot together. Alright, see you guys again next week, inshallah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh.